Hey gang, Professor Feeser here, and in today's video we're going to talk about using Ansible to automate the provisioning of a tool called SemaphoreUI. Now we're talking about SemaphoreUI here. There's a couple projects called Semaphore. This project, I'm going to hop to its repository, is for running Ansible, Terraform, OpenTofu, TerraGrunt, PowerShell, and any other DevOps scripting you might have. So it's like Jenkins, if you're familiar. Here's a picture of what the UI looks like ultimately. You hop in, you set up a project. If it's an Ansible project, you give the project, and well, the project would be fast licks. These are called task templates. A task template involves a name for it, the playbook that's going to run, an associated inventory, an environment. Environments can have secrets associated with them, and then ultimately some triggers, whether it's manual or API call or some other project ran. If you're using this, you might be wondering, is there a way that I can set it up, that I can provision this project without actually logging in? And there is. There seems to be an individual, not SemaphoreUI as far as I can tell. There seems to be an individual who's taken it upon themselves to write a collection. And, I don't know their relationship to Semaphore, but it seemed like this was just an individual's contribution to an open source community. It is extensive. It's really well written. The namespace is ebdruplab, and the collection name is SemaphoreUI. Out on Ansible Galaxy, it's the only thing I could find really that was published. In any event, Ansible Galaxy collection install, that right there will pull it in for you. We know this is a collection. There's a galaxy.yaml there. Galaxy.yaml is metadata about publishing to Ansible Galaxy itself. You can check that out if you need to. Here's a description of all of the modules that are there. And then there's some demo playbooks. There's one here. It shows all provisioning with a key. And then this is actually a second playbook right here, which shows a little bit more. So what I did is ran this project. I got at least Semaphore stood up, and then I stood up an Ansible box that I could target Semaphore and just play around with some of the collection that's been published here. Just an FYI, if you ever want to dive deep into a collection, just go into the plugins folder, go into modules. These are all the modules themselves. So, you can ebdruplab.semaphoreui.events is a Ansible module. And if you want to read straight from the developer notes, it's quite easy. The documentation you're going to see in Ansible doc is always up at the top. There's some examples that you'd see in Ansible doc as well. The return values is what's going to be sent back. So that's also published into Ansible doc. And then really, even if you're not a Python wizard, this top piece here, they're actually describing the inputs. So host is an input. It's a string and it's got to appear. A port is an input. It's a number and it's got to appear, so on and so forth. So don't be intimidated by actually reading the code. The code certainly won't lie to you like blogs and documentation sometimes does. In any event, what we see here is lots and lots of modules. Very well written. Very well written. I only started digging into this. I have a couple opinions about it that I'll make known while we're working through the playbook I wrote, but it's possible that I have something else to discover about this yet. That said, I'm going to hop to the solutions I started building for us. All of these solutions are ultimately available out on my GitHub platform. I'm going to post the link to that here in the video as well as down in the chat. All the links I've been discussing will be down near the comment section. So if we look here, this particular solution has just a Playbooks folder in it. And I'm going to cd into Playbooks. Here I have a host.ini, a Playbook 01 login, Playbook 02 provision. I'm going to cat out Playbook 01 login. And let me do some explaining on how this works. We're targeting localhost because this solution ultimately makes API calls. As far as I can tell, it is using the Python standard library. It doesn't appear to be using requests. I may have had requests installed, but that said, I didn't see any prerequisites for you must install the following Python libraries to make this work. Looking at up at the top, vars, that would be the IP address, HTTP or HTTPS, to the Semaphore solution you have running. That's the port on the outside. So when you're running your Docker command and you do the -p x y, where x would be like 3000 and y would be, say, 3000. This is the X side. It's what did you say the local port is for listening for this particular Docker container. Admin and change me, again, this is all just matching information used when you kicked off the Docker solution. This login business asks for a host, a port, a username, and a password. And what that's going to do is return a thing called a session cookie, which you can use in lieu of a username and password. So I can actually run that Ansible Playbook, Playbook 01, login. And there you go, the end of our first playbook. You can see we get back login result dot, and then digging into their session cookie. That value, moving forward, you're going to use in lieu of your username password. Now, the next piece, the second playbook, begins very similarly to the first. We actually have the same variables that we call for, the IP address where it's running, the local port that it's listening on. This time we include a project name. Now, Semaphore has a sense of projects being where tasks are described and carried out. Unfortunately, Semaphore asks a human for a project name and then assigns a primary key to that project. It indexes starting at 1 and seems to work up from there. Well, the issue is a human rarely would work with that primary key. They would know a human name, which unfortunately can be duplicated in Semaphore. So what I've designed or tried to design here is a solution that prevents duplicate projects of the same name from being created. And if we go and look at the way that this particular collection is written, the module project create is non-idempotent. If you call project create, it will create a project. You call it again, it'll create a project. You call it again, it'll create a project. I didn't think that was the behavior I wanted. So what I chose to do is augment it to say, let's start by logging in, and then let's use project list. That'll get us all of the projects that exist. Then let's start by saying when the project name, which the project name, just so we're clear, is Code with Feeser Demo. When the project name does not exist, when not in results we got from asking for the project list. When it's not in results, go ahead and create it. Now we do that search with, it's part of the standard library, community general JSON query, but it does have a dependency. This has a Python dependency, JSME, I think it is, query. It's easily installed, but maybe we put a loop there. We could get rid of it. Dependencies should be avoided. We could probably use a loop. It would be a bit slower, but we could probably get the same functionality using item and checking that way. Now, this idea that Semaphore allows you to have multiple project names, I believe the project, both the ID and the human name, should be unique. Ultimately, it makes it really hard for automation if that's not the case, because suppose there's two projects called Code with Feeser Demo. If I run my automation, how does the automation know what to run against? Does it run against the lowest ID or the highest ID? What if there's more than two? So this solution I designed to just give the user an opportunity to escape if the project already exists, and furthermore won't create a project with the same name. So here again, we're creating the project, we're saving it, the results, if ultimately the project needed to be created. That project has the ID in it that was assigned to it. So register project, we can get the ID. In fact, the next thing I do is say, grab the ID number out of there and assign it to a variable called project. So dig into project with the ID, assign it to project. And again, if we had to create that project, we want to do that. Now, if it already exists, well, then I want to take the list of all the projects and I want to try to find the project that matches the name. The results are mapped to a list of dictionaries. So I'm trying to select the dictionary with the project in it. Right here, I go, look, if this returned more than one project is having this human name, just pause. Give the human a chance to bail. What I say is multiple projects matching the project name were found. Ansible will overwrite the match with the lowest ID. Press enter to continue. You can see the next one actually chooses project 0. That's the 0th item in this list of projects that came back. So maybe it's a fail if you didn't want automation to potentially hang and be waiting for an enter key. You could easily change that pause to a fail and then the prompt to a message like why it failed, which would be, sorry, this automation, it's unclear what you actually want to change. Go change some project names and come back. I would rather the automation fail than it overwrite somebody's project, right? That's what that pause is about. Here, the set fact, if the project already exists, we now have the project ID. As far as I can tell, this collection doesn't have that functionality. I had to use Ansible to build that out. But it's possible that's in there and I just haven't discovered it yet. I have maybe 15 hours, 20 hours in with this collection so far. Here we create a login password key. There we're creating a key. Next, we create an environment. We're creating an environment. Next, we're creating a static inventory. Now, ultimately, this would be an inventory associated with this project. The project, I'm uploading a playbook for Semaphore to run that doesn't have a required inventory. So it's not really necessary, but I like showing off the fact that you can do it. Create a project repository. So here's actually where my playbook is that I want Semaphore to run. It's in github.com RZFeeser simple Ansible. And the name there, simple Ansible linkage. That is, that's pulling an Ansible job. That's just the name of the repo. So let's go look at that. You can see actually there's simple Ansible RZFeeser, simple Ansible playbook. You can see it truly is a very simple playbook. I just needed something legal that we could upload. So that's what pulls that in. Finally, we build the template that's actually taking the repository, an inventory, a key. It's putting everything together. It's like creating the job itself, the job to be run. So I call it deploy web. I say it's going to be an Ansible job. Where the playbook is, that's now in Semaphore. I give it a description. The log out is what invalidates the session cookie. So the session cookie you're using there to log out is also the invalidator. All right, let's go ahead and hop out of here. We can try running it. Running the playbook is just like any Ansible solution. An Ansible playbook, playbook 02 provision. You're going to see lots of skips because of the when statements. Some of the changed. I think if I run this again, it would probably fail the idempotent test. I believe a lot of these tests should ultimately be optimized with when statements to make sure they're not recreating resources maybe that already exist. But I did show you that's what the top of the playbook was about. That's what those when statements and the JSON query was about, making sure we don't recreate projects if we don't need to. There's code with Feeser. This was a fresh install previously, so that's new. Task templates, we should see deploy web. We do. Schedule inventory. There's local static inventory that was put in by our playbook. Demo environment, that is new. Key store basic auth, that is new. Repository simple linkage. There you can see my simple Ansible playbook. So it worked. It worked. As I said, there are optimizations that can and should be made. One of the best practice checks you can do with Ansible is press the up arrow, run your solution a second time. If you get any yellow the second time through, you've failed the idempotent test. You need to go back and fix that. Anything we're seeing there with yellow should not, on a second run, should be green. So you can see we've done that with the projects, right? Get the project with the session cookie, get the project if it already exists, select the first project. We're not recreating a project. We are putting in place the second time this other information. The reason that's not desirable is we want to trust our results. That is to say, if we see yellow, we should have faith that this stuff actually needed to be created, not that something ran and ultimately ran because it re-provisioned itself or doubled up some information. Wow, gang, what a fantastic little video on applying Ansible to a real-world use case, in this case, Semaphore. I didn't even know about SemaphoreUI until last week. I was teaching Ansible and some of my students said, Zach, show us how to automate against this thing. So we found this collection and here you go. Here I am a few days later recording this video. If you did find anything in this video useful, out on GitHub, I put the two playbooks. You'll find on github.com RZFeeser Ansible-SemaphoreUI in the playbooks folder. Playbook 01 and Playbook 02, we just studied those. Down in the README, I have the instructions on how to make them work. If you use that stuff, give me a star here on GitHub. Additionally, give the original author, I linked to their GitHub, give them a star as well for the collection work. Gang, if you learned something in this video, give me a like, hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode of Code with Feeser.